Cheaper than our producer's underage sister. Edgier than the stuff shown on late night television. Newer than Kim Kardashian's ex. Live from Orlando, it's Crazy Train Radio.
Call is now being recorded.
Hey folks, got another great interview on the line right now. Just recently came out with a book. Best way to describe it, title is Animal, about George the Animal Steele. You got myself, your host, The Croc, along with producer, the cult classic Jake Steele, and we got George the Animal Steele on the line itself. George, how you doing?
Hey, you! What?
Hey, George, is there any chance we could talk to Mr. Is there any chance we could talk to Mr. Myers?
Hey, just a minute!
Okay.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Jim.
Yes.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
How's life in Florida for you?
Love it here.
I can't complain. Well, like I said, we actually just
There's
finished
two
up
people
reading
using
your
this
book.
body, so let's not be confusing. There's two people using this body. You was talking to George, now you're talking to the other guy that's been here for 76 years. George has only been there for 46 years. And now you're talking to Jim Myers, who also George the Animal Steele in his crazy days.
Yes. Well, I'm happy to be speaking with Jim Myers right now, who was, obviously, George the Animal Steele. So, first and foremost, about the book. Why now? What made you say, I want to put this book out and put my story out there?
Well, a lot of guys have written books, a lot of wrestlers and other people, when years old. I've pretty much lived my life, so I'm telling about my come on. It's at the end of the time. This is my swan song type thing. I had a great run. I was a crazy wrestler that loved the business, but never watched it until I became a wrestler. Then I was a football coach and wrestling coach for 25 years and wrestled part-time, but became pretty well known worldwide. It's crazy how it worked. God was in control, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. And part of it, towards the end of the book, obviously, and don't want to spoil your way down the yellow brick road there, but religion has actually played a big part of your life the past several years, I guess 10 years or so, correct?
I think everybody should write you and your buddy there, because when you get old enough, you can look at your life through a rear view mirror, and you can see where God was touching it even before you recognized Him. He knew who you were. And it's just amazing how vivid it comes as I look back at it now writing this book. I started out in elementary school being very dyslexic, had a hard time reading and writing. Kids made fun of me because I was a big kid. My dad had lost his eye in a fight. He told me never to get in a fight. So kids would pick on me, and instead of responding, I'd go home crying. Finally, one day, my mother had enough. She said, "Okay, Jimmy, you're going to fight." And she made me fight. I was reluctant. And she took me to the playground. Here's Jimmy. He used to fight, and the kids all come running because they figured I'd start crying and run. But the handcuffs were taken off, so the first guy there was Mickey Fulton. He took a pretty good licking, and the next one, Billy Hinton. And before long, you looked around, the other kids just kind of dwindled away. And that was my first success in life, was fighting. So still struggling with dyslexia. I'm talking in the 50s and 40s before they knew what it was. And then I go into high school, I still got the same problem. And they don't know what to do with me, the teachers or the administration, so they send me to the gym every day. Guess what? I become a pretty good athlete. So I end up going to Michigan State. I'm nowhere near qualified, but somehow I get through there. My side all the way. We've been married 58 years, which is another amazing thing that God had to put in my place. And then I come out and I coach for 25 years, wrestle part-time, but main events in Madison Square Gardens, Boston Gardens, Philadelphia. I mean, every major arena. I was main events with Bruno Sammartino and Pedro Morales, and later on Bobby Backlund, and even later on in my retirement almost, I wrestled a time. So, yeah, it was quite a crazy run.
Well, obviously you mentioned about And in the book it mentions about you being a very good family man. Like you said, you've been married for 58 years, 3 grown kids at this point. How was that life on the road during the summer for you with 3 kids?
Well, it wasn't on the road. I was a school. I only wrestled 2.5 months out of the year. I was a part-time wrestler. I left a lot of money on the table to go back and teach and coach, which is what I love doing. The reason I started wrestling, I never watched it. I was not a fan. And that doesn't mean I didn't learn to love it. But I was looking for a job. I was making $4,300 a year teaching and coaching. I'm a football guy. My knees are pretty well blown out, so that's out of the picture. And I'm looking for a part-time job to help my teaching income of $4,300. And I'm looking for a job as a bouncer. So I take a friend of mine with me, Dave Pierce. And Dave is a huge wrestling fan. About 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not being hired because I'm drinking beer, and I got a buddy with me. Not a good way to look for a job as a bouncer. And he talks me to call him Bert Ruby, the local promoter. I wake him up. He invites me over the next day. Takes one look at me. It's beautiful. I know what I look like, so that didn't ride too well. Anyhow, he started talking about me wrestling in the area. I didn't want to wrestle as Jim Myers because of the coaching. They put a mask on me, and I wrestled as a student for about 6 or 7 years. And it got pretty successful at that. Then Bruno Sammartino, then the WWF champion, came to Detroit to wrestle Bulldog Brower. They spotted me and invited me to Pittsburgh. I had a short run with Bruno where we started selling a lot of tickets. It's quite an experience. And then the next year I was invited to go to the WWF, the whole Northeast, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, so on and so forth. And we had a couple of 3 great runs there, so then it became an annual event. And at that time, I was doing my own interviews, very articulate. I wasn't doing it. Just doing my own interviews, and the people started calling me an animal. And then one day, Vince McMahon Jr. Said to me, "You're making too much sense for an animal," which kind of irritated me because at that time I think Freddie Blassie was managing me, and we were both talking intelligently. So from that I went, He said, "That's what I want." So I became the cartoon character, which was a great way to finish my run. From being one of the wildest, nastiest, meanest in the history of the business to a lovable cartoon character. I mean, that's it.
Well, obviously, no. Sorry about that. Well, obviously you mentioned there, and it's throughout your book, that you talk about your battle with dyslexia. Obviously, like you said, going through school at the time, those times, people didn't know what dyslexia was. With your case specifically, when would you say people go, that may be the issue? Because obviously you went on to have a good education to become a teacher and coach and everything else that you've mentioned.
A lot of it was by accident. My enrollment officer at Michigan State recognized that I had pretty good intelligence. I just had a hard time, cycling through it. So he set it up for me to take a lot of them orally. And they still didn't know much about dyslexia, but it's starting to, get some light on it. And what they have found out since, that the people with dyslexia has great memory. I look at it as if God takes something away from you, He gives you something else to replace it. In my case, it was a great memory, so I could recite whatever was taught in the class. So I took a lot of my tests orally rather than written, and that really helped me to get through Michigan State. Plus, I had a lot of other challenges. I was a character, certainly not designed to go to college at the time. Somehow, I got through.
There you go. And your wife also taught, correct?
Oh, yes. Yes, she taught for about 8 years. She did not start teaching and in fact, didn't go to college until our children started going to at least grade school because we wanted her to be home for them when they came home and when they'd be growing up. But once they started going to school full-time, then she filled in and got her college education, and she taught 6 or 7, 8 years. She was excellent with the kids. It was a good thing.
Jake, I think you said you had a question as well.
Yeah. One thing I've always wondered was, how did you ever get that role as Tori Johnson in the movie Ed Wood?
Because I'm an outstanding actor. Not really. Because I look just like Tor. I was about 3 inches shorter than him, but I looked just like him, and Tim Burton was looking for somebody that looked the part, and that I did. And then it was easy to play the role because Tor did not do a whole lot. And it was just, again, who would have ever thought I was going to be in the movies? Come on. But that worked out pretty good. And
Now, do you have any other filmography roles, anything else on television-wise that separates from your wrestling persona?
I've been 2 or 3 movies. Most of them are just, nothing. Ed Wood was a big one. You guys, some of your fans are in Rochester, New York?
Yes, sir.
Pretty much.
Huh? Rochester, the old war memorial. Boy, if that building could talk, I'll tell you, it would be scary. But I'm going to be there, and we'll be in Rochester, New York, at 7 p.m. on the 27th of July with a book signing at Barnes & Noble. So that'll be fun. I'll get to see some of my friends from the past that rocked and rolled in the old arena.
Well, I'll make sure I'll stop by and see you.
Well, speaking of which, you mentioned, since Jake brought up about the movie role in Ed Wood, in the book you mentioned about a particular story with one of the promo videos you said sent Tim Burton with you and Harvey Whippleman. What exactly did you send him?
Harvey was managing some guy that's about 7'6", Giant Gazaya, I forget his name.
Giant Gonzalez, yeah.
Yeah. And so what we did was, I was producing at that time. I was an agent with wrestling with WWF, and I was producing some interviews. So they wanted something, so I went in. I was doing an interview. My name is da da da, and I had Harvey Wilmerman come in with a package, and he told me it was from Federal Express. Federal Express. Here, you got to sign here. You got to sign here. He's messing with my interview. So I kind of shoved him aside, not hard. He said, "Get out of here! I'm doing an interview." And behind me, the giant, and I went, "Hey, Tim, you take over here. Tim Burton, you take over here." I sent that to him. You don't send that kind of stuff to Hollywood, but I did and got the job.
Yeah, when you were talking about that whole movie experience, when you think the one line that really stood out was when you're wrapping it all up and says, "Who can go live the Hollywood lifestyle for a few months, then go back to my regular old life, back to my wife, going to the movies, and yes, I still have to pay for the popcorn and soda pop."
Right.
Yeah, but let's get back into the wrestling a little bit, if we can, Jim.
Sure.
You were mentioned earlier as we were talking about Bruno.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you about Bruno, somebody so huge in the industry, tapping you on the shoulder, said, "Come on, I see something with you," and now all these years later, Bruno finally accepting the Hall of Fame invitation?
Well, I just I felt very blessed that I had the runs that I had with Bruno Sammartino. We went all through the Northeast for probably 7 or 8 years every summer. I mean, it was my summer vacation. Just about every third summer I wouldn't go out there, but it's a great run. And Bruno, I think, was a great champion. And if he opted to not be in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame or the WWE Hall of Fame, that was his choice. I respect it. When he decided to go in, I respect that. That's his choice. It's just a great memory from the past. That's all.
Understandable, because we actually spoke with Bruno probably about 3 weeks out before he went into the Hall of Fame, and talked about a class man. And
oh, absolutely.
I have all the respect in the world for him.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't see too many people like it and that ilk anymore. But yeah, obviously. Another guy you mentioned a lot in the book that was a character of all characters was Captain Lou Albano.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the good old Captain there, who's no longer with us?
Captain was just he was a great wrestler. Him and Tony Altomar's Cecilians in a tag team. When he became a manager, he was outstanding on TV. Sometimes it was a struggle with him, because if you're doing something in the ring as a wrestler and somebody's doing something else on the outside that attracts the attention, the way we used to wrestle, that makes it pretty tough, because you're trying to tell a storyline and use some psychology. So sometimes he made it a little bit rough during the arena, but he was a blast on television, and enough of a blast to get past whatever happened in the arena. So it was good. He was great.
Well, in the words of Bobby Heenan, Captain Lou maybe had the rubber bands on too tight.
At times.
Yeah, but you actually mentioned about Captain Lou's tag team partner, and I don't want to keep giving away the whole story in the book, but you actually mentioned when you were on the road with the WWF, and Lou was in that tag team, how they decided to treat you for lunch all summer long, only to hand you a stack of receipts.
What a great guys. All summer long, my first summer there, because I was their guest, every day they bought my lunch. They didn't let me buy the gas, that's good, but they bought my lunch. I thought that was pretty nice of them. Still do.
Well, how much do you actually pay attention currently to the current products?
You know, I get that asked that all the time, and it's a totally different business than I was in. We were we use television as a promotion to sell the arena shows. They use television to sell television now and pay-per-views. So it's a totally different. What they do in the ring is totally different than what we did. I watch it. I tape it. I watch it. I watch most all their shows. I don't watch the whole show, and I don't watch a lot of the wrestling because it's pretty much choreographed. People say, well, things are different. It was different in this way only. We knew who was going to win when we went in the ring. Our matches were predetermined. But we did not know how we were going to get to the finish. And usually it took 30, 35 minutes to get there using crowd psychology and the heel getting the heat, babyface making little comebacks and stuff like that. That's all lost now. With all that said, and everybody's waiting for me to knock today's wrestling, I can't do that. They are the greatest athletes of all time. There's no way that I could have got on the top rope and done a triple Zammy and landed on somebody without killing them and me both. So I respect their athletic ability. The difference, everybody says the old school had its deal. The difference is honestly and very simple. We were very, very tough. It was a lot tougher, just tougher people. And the show was a different kind of show.
Jake, what's your next question, sir?
So George, I was wondering, do you still carry that stuffed animal mine around, or did you give him?
No. He made the cover of the book.
Really?
He's on the cover of the book. Mine dolls, and I'm, with all this stuff going on right now, I'm just going to leave them.
Well, whose idea, speaking of that, the stuffed animal, whose idea was that to bring him on board there?
It was kind of a multiple thing. Me and my wife were in Alabama somewhere, and Hillbilly Jim was in the room next to us in a hotel. He said, come and see my roommate. So I went over, and he had an unstuffed Earl the cat. It's this unstuffed animal, and it's just flat like a car ran over it, and the eyes are crossed, the tail's bent, and so on and so forth. And I said, let me use that. So I took it, and that night of Mean Gene Okerlund, and one of my, cartoon interviews, and he said, who are you wrestling? I go, Earl. And everything he would say, I go, Earl. And at the end, I pulled up by the tail, this dead cat, and tried to crack Mean Gene up, which I did. When Vince said that, he said, Jim, what in the world are you doing? Why are we selling some product? Why don't you develop your own tool? So I developed the Mind Doll with Velcro on the hands, and it became my tag team partner. It got so that back then, doing my character was so strange that the action figure would hang on the ropes. It would swing around when people finally they'd get mad at me. They kicked the Mind Doll, and I'd act like they kicked me. Then I'd beat them up and when we won, I'd let them raise Mind Doll's hand. So we sold a ton of them, truckloads of them, but that was just as I was getting sick with Crohn's. And my career was winding down. We didn't know it at the time, but age-wise, I was ready. But it took the health to knock me out of the business.
Speaking of that health, how are you doing today, health-wise?
Well, there's no cure for Crohn's. It's definitely. They told me 24 years ago that I had 6 months to live. That's when I moved to Florida. Spent my last days on the beach. And along the process, that's when my church shopping, that's in the book. And in 2002, I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, 10 years after I was supposed to be dead. And I'm still alive. And you asked me why I wrote the book. We had to finish life before we could finish the book. So yeah, it's kind of a neat thing. I think that gives it a lot of depth. The book is being very well received. I had a fellow, one of the sports writers where I used to coach, that helped me write it, and it's blowing off the shelves. They tell me. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's an honest story. It tells about how everything affected me and how blessed I've been.
Well,
The wrestling,
I actually really have.
Let me tell you about the coaching.
Okay, go ahead.
The wrestling made me, as I grew as a professional wrestler, was tremendous for my self-confidence. And it really was key to me becoming a successful coach. So the success in wrestling, with all the problems, learning the disabilities and everything else, the success in wrestling made me a better person, and it opened me up to a lot of things. So pro wrestling did an awful lot for me and my family.
Well, since you said that, is there any specific instance that you can think of that you go, wow, as far as your confidence or a specific game or anything that you think back now and go, wow.
Life in general. I look back at my life and it is a wow. Going through it was a struggle.
But looking back now, you could say, hey, job well done, right?
I say, wow. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God.
I only have particularly one more question for you, because you mentioned it there with the changes in the business, such as from when you started to what it is today. Obviously, like you said, a lot of things have been choreographed match-wise and everything else. Do you think people can within the industry, can turn back the time to where guys can learn to listen to the crowd and just go with a finish and give the people what they want?
I think those days are over. It's a totally different business. I think Vince McMahon Jr. has been a genius in guiding it through that era and into where it's at now. It's $1 billion business. It's more like the circus coming to town. Madison Square Gardens in New York, I think they go in there now 2 or 3 times a year. The circus used to do that. Now, when I was wrestling with Bruno Sammartino, and I would wrestle in there every 3 weeks. They had a show in Madison Square Garden, so you're talking 11 shows a year. They couldn't do that now because it's not about the talent as much as it is the label. WWE is what sells tickets, not necessarily individuals. And it's a great marketing strategy. It really is. You've seen guys leave the WWF, and now E, and go to the WCW a few years back. And Vince, being a brilliant guy that he is, made himself the top heel in the business. He got involved and started doing a little bit of the ring stuff himself. So if somebody left to go to another company for a couple $1 million, when he would go to the ring, they forget that person, whoever it was, very quickly. And the WWF and now E just continued to march on strong.
Jake, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
Yeah, George, if you were to pick one opponent throughout your whole career, who do you think the best one that you worked well with? Whether it be like Ricky or Randy or even the Sheik or Nikolai?
Number 1 would probably be Bruno. Number 2 would probably be Bobby Backlund. Number 3 would probably be Randy Savage, and the list goes on and on. I had an opportunity to work with all the top people in the industry over the years. Dr. Bill Miller, go way back when. A guy by the name, you don't even know him, but Leapin' Larry Shane is one of the best wrestlers I was ever in the ring with. Crusher Cortez. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. But back in the territory days, a lot of these guys were just in the Michigan area when I was breaking in. They were outstanding athletes and wrestlers, but they were also family people. They weren't looking to go on the road. So to name one outstanding, you know what? It's easier to talk about who I didn't like to be in the ring with, and that was somebody that didn't know what the heck they were doing.
And did you come across a lot of those guys yourself?
Not a lot of them. Not a lot of them. Usually it was on the TV performance. And there was one guy in a 5-minute match, I threw him over the top rope 17 times, told me he didn't belong in the ring with me.
Hey, and I actually remember, as I was doing my research and reading the book and everything, I do remember you specifically mentioning during an interview where you where one person in the ring with you would try to put you in a headlock and really try to break your neck. What was that all about?
That was when I first broke. And then this fella, I was under the mask. I was a student. I'd only been in the business about 8 or. And he brought a bunch of bananas, trying to be funny. He'd had a couple of drinks, I think. Slow gin was the problem. And his girlfriend had put these bananas. And when I say a bunch, I'm talking maybe 100, 120 bananas in a big, large bunch. And he brought it out like I was a monkey, trying to be funny because I had a lot of hair in my body. In the ring, what am I going to do with it? So I give him a banana bath, which made him mad. To bring free, the whole thing got really screwed up. And then when we started to lock up, he took my head and tried to break my neck. And I went through his legs and made a soprano out of him. And then he tried it the second time, and I made a soprano out of him again. And then the second time he told me that it was time to put an end to this. So it was a terrible professional match, but I beat the tar out of him. That was the end of his career.
Yeah, because further in the story that you ended up, or not just you, but the rest of our locker room had seen what was going on and ended up tossing him out on the street pretty much.
Out in the snow with his suitcase and all of his clothes. Yeah, he didn't belong in the room with men.
Yeah, because like you said, everybody was out there to try to make a living, family man.
After he got beat up, in the ring, he come in and started screaming at the promoter who had just had a heart attack, Bert Ruby, who had Crusher Cortez had had enough of that, and boom, his career was over.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's plenty of people that didn't want to follow the business or follow the code of ethics.
Well, you got to respect it. Any time you're in the ring, I don't care what's going on, who you are. If you don't respect your opponent, you deserve to be beat up. And that's the way the business is. That's the way it has always been. Kayfabe was ran by the wrestlers, not by the promoters. And, we were all independent contractors. So if somebody did something that was a scar on our business, you got a scar on him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of independent contractors, and honestly, this is the last question for me. When you went to become an agent, were you still considered an independent contractor, or were you somebody actually a full-time employee by the company?
I was not on contract. Therefore, I was a contractor.
Okay.
See,
well, Jim Myers.
When the WWF took over and became a corporate giving out contracts, that's when Kayfabe died, because they're no longer working for themselves; they're working for the office, and the respect of the business changed a little bit, and that's just human nature.
Yeah, things evolve over the years. Well, honestly, it's been a true pleasure to speak with you, Jim Myers. George the Animal Steele. He's got the book out now. Like he said, it's been flying off the shelves. The book's called Animal. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, all kinds of stores. Thank you so much for taking a half hour out of your day, and enjoy Florida down there.
Well, thank you very much, guys, and God bless, and you have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.